Morning, everybody, and it's happy Wednesday. Just waiting for this to start streaming.
It tells me it is on my end.
Oh, it is. Brilliant. Okay. Well, good morning, everybody, on the Norwich Guide Dog Forum page. I'm Lana Hempsel, and I'm one of the Norwich Guide Dog Forum coordinators, together with Scott and Angie and Annette. And on Wednesday mornings, I have been hosting these In Conversations with interesting people who are helping us raise awareness and accessibility and improve lives of visually impaired people pretty much all over the country, because I don't think physical places really exist anymore now, and the internet is far reaching. So I just want to give a big shout out to Annette, Scott and Angie for the work that they've done so far. The page has grown so much since lockdown. We've gone from just over 100 likes to 400 now, and our audience is growing day by day by day. So if you like what we're doing, if you know somebody who's affected with sight loss, if you are a carer or a family member or just a member of the community, or you just like guide dogs because they're such incredible animals, just give us a like and share the page and see if we can get us to 500 likes in the very near future, because I've been talking to a couple of businesses who have said that if we get to 500 by the end of September, they might just sponsor us. So can you please support us? That would be just amazing. Today, I've got with me James Knight, who is the managing director of a couple of Broads businesses. You'll know that I am incredibly fond of the Broads and the water. I just think it's just such an amazing place to be. And since lockdown, I feel that we need to get out. We need to get out. We need to experience nature. We need to spread our wings a bit, because I was talking to James about this earlier. Lockdown finished some, months ago. Yes, there's been localized ones, but talking to people in the visually impaired community, we haven't really gone out that much. Those of us who were told to shield are thinking, well, what's changed? And those of us who have been venturing out are going, well, the physical environment has changed beyond recognition. Capacity on buses is reduced because of social distancing. Things have changed, and an environment that already wasn't best tailored to our needs has now changed beyond recognition to something that's going to take us a while to adapt. So I've got James here, who runs a couple of holiday businesses, who will talk us through what they have in place to facilitate a nice day in the fresh air and in the sunshine while we still can. So yeah, James, over to you. Thank you. Tell us what businesses do you run, because I'll make a mistake with the names, I know that for sure. and what do you do, and how we can sort of tap into that.
Okay, hi Lana, thanks for inviting me on board. So yes, I run a couple of holiday businesses. One of them is Waveney River Centre, which is in the southern part of the Broads, on the bank of the River Waveney, as you might expect. Not a million miles from Beccles, Haddiscoe, places like that. Very much, unfortunately, inaccessible from public transport, which doesn't help you guys very much. But once you are there, it is very much a haven for relaxation and wildlife. And in particular, we've got a tie-up with Carlton Marshes Nature Reserve, which we take you across the river by ferry to the reserve, and there's a huge amount to do. And over there, very peaceful, very quiet, lots of walking. They've just had £4.5 million worth of lottery money chucked at restoring the habitats. So that's a great place for anybody to go to, almost regardless of what disabilities or impairments they might have. And I know they've done a great deal of work over there in terms of making the place more accessible. Our other business, which I'll probably talk to you more about today, is Norfolk Broads Direct and Broads Tours at Wroxham.
Broads Tours, that's the one.
so Norfolk Broads Direct is the holidays afloat and holidays on cottages. Broads Tours is the passenger boats and day boats. So the great thing with that business is, first of all, it's very accessible. It's right on the main road next to the bridge. at the intersection of the river and the road, and a very short walk from the railway station.
So
Often.
people get to Wroxham, right? So from memory, not done it terribly many times, but Wroxham is the number 12 bus, isn't it, or something like that, or 11 from Norwich,
Well,
which goes every.
of course, I should know, shouldn't I? So
Well,
you've caught me out straight away on that. But of course, I normally drive or actually cycle there because I don't live very far away. But it is on a good bus route, so it's the one
and
that.
there's the train station, isn't it, just across the river? So
That's right.
yeah.
So it's the bus that goes through Norwich from the UEA, across Norwich up through Sprowston, Wroxham, Stalham, that neck of the woods. So it's that route, and then it's got the Houghton railway station, which is on the line that goes up to Sheringham from Norwich, and it is a very short walk away. So we are, out of all the businesses on the Broads, many of which are remote by virtue of the fact that they need to be on the river. We're one of the few businesses that's properly accessible to anyone. So we've got a huge car park if you're driving. We're right near the railway station, and of course everyone gets confused because they think it's Wroxham, and actually we're the only Wroxham business that's actually in Wroxham. All the rest are on the other side of the river, which is in Houghton. So we can actually genuinely say, and there's a dayboat business on the other side of the river called Wroxham Boat Hire, and another one called Wroxham Launch Hire, and neither of them are in Wroxham. Well, we're called Broad Stores, but we're the only one that is in Wroxham. So,
and I think the accessibility, I think that's why I was so keen for you to come on here today, because you are one of the few accessibility points. I'm not going to go into the what goes on in terms of accessibility on the Broads. That's a conversation for another day and the culture surrounding that. But you are one of the businesses that, and especially the passenger boats, is something that is accessible both from an affordability point of view and actually from a physical impairment point of view. Because go and talk to us about the passenger boats. How's that? I mean, those have been beloved by generations for ages. How many boats have you got?
We've got 4 large passenger boats, which in peacetime would take 120 people or more. Of course, at the moment, social distancing, social bubbling, where that capacity is severely reduced. But we're still running now 6 or 7 trips a day. We've got four boats. One of them we're not using at the moment simply because it doesn't work very well when you don't allow people to move around. So the way we've had to change our operations is that rather than just have the option of buying a ticket and you can go upstairs when you feel like it and downstairs when you feel like it, we're having to zone the boat into, so we've got perspex screens, booths, so you buy your table of 4, your table of 3, you're in your social bubble. It's waitress service at the table for drinks and snacks. So you can't go into the loo, you can't actually move away from those tables. So that's the kind of measure that we've had to take in order to make it possible even to run the trips in 2020. And the great thing is that we've made people feel safe and comfortable. We insist on face covering being worn. So, it's very good from that perspective. But of course, what it does mean is that you can't go upstairs if you fancy it, or if the rain comes, you can't go downstairs. So so we've had to stop using one of the open top boats. And the other one, we just book the top deck on the day when we know what the weather forecast is going to do. The other 2 boats are double decker, but they're enclosed top and bottom. So they're much more practical for 2020, where we have to say to people, that's your seat and you need to stay there. But the great thing is that the boats have got huge windows, so that you're not restricted from downstairs and what you can see. And from the point of view of people who've got visual impairment of any type, or indeed anybody, there's a great commentary, and we've got some really professional, really personable skippers who've all got their own little spiel that they
That's
do.
good.
They take you down the Broad, so you'll go to Wroxham and to Salhouse and to Horning, depending on the length of the trip. And they've got some great stories that they tell. So they'll describe what you're seeing as you go down the river. So as you're leaving the boatyard, they tell you a bit about the history of the yard, and then they talk to you about the different types of boatyards and holiday properties as you go through the Broad, and then you go to Wroxham Broad, where sometimes there's a bit of sailing going on there. And they talk about the history of the Broads, so you learn quite a lot about because of course, until 60 years ago, everybody thought that the Broads were a natural phenomenon. In fact, they're man-made. They're medieval peat diggings predominantly. There's a couple of gravel diggings, but mostly peat. And so there's a bit of learning about why the Broads were formed, how they were dug out. And then as you go further out into the more rural area, there's learning about the reed and sedge cutting and the thatching, and there's various thatched houses. So you see the thatched properties and you see the reed bed where the thatch would have come from. And you know, these skippers are great. You know, they're it's not, you know, a dull kind of lecture. It's quite amusing and it's quite engaging. And so I think that for somebody in particular, somebody who can't see either at all or can't see very well, it's very, very accessible for those people because they get a really, really good commentary.
Can I I'm just going to, you mentioned perspex screens inside. Those you probably won't know because perspex screens have become a bit of an issue with visually impaired people because to us they are invisible, they don't exist. So clearly they are serving a purpose of containing the air and everything else around us, but they also contain somebody who's blind, possibly in a way that's not
well, I think certainly the way we've used them, they wouldn't cause that kind of problem, because if you imagine being on a train where you've got a table and seats either side facing the table, and then you've got the next booth back to back, what we've done is we've separated the booths with perspex screens. So unless you were actually going to try and attempt to climb over the seat to the person behind you, the perspex screen's not going to be in the way. But what it does give you is the confidence. And of course, we've stickered the screens up as well, just so that people walking past don't accidentally knock into them. But you know, these are not in the walkways or impinging the walkways in any way. They're to separate the seating areas. So no worries on that front.
I could
You're right. You're right. You don't see them. And that's usually a good thing.
I could show bruises on my knuckles, like the keypad. That's anyway. So not to mention, as some people have marks on their forehead as well. So it's our life could be so hilarious if it wasn't actually just tragic at the same time.
I mean, what it has done, this whole coronavirus pandemic, is it's forced us to reinvent the business and rethink what we do. And in some ways that's had its negatives because of reduced occupancy, and people can't just be as friendly with each other, and they can't move around in the same way as I've described. But the good thing is it's enabled us to use technology, or it's forced us to use technology to improve the way that we book and the way that we provide our information. So we've got much better website presence in terms of, first of all, describing what we do in the first place and giving people the ability to book online and book in advance. So previously you would have queued up at 8 o'clock in the morning to get your ticket, and if you were too late, you were too late. Now you can jump on the website anytime you like. You book your tickets. Unfortunately, it's not as simple anymore as, you know, 2 adults and 2 children. It's a case of, well, you book a 4, you book a 2, you book a 3. So, you know, that doesn't obviously suit absolutely everyone, but that's the way we've had to do it. But what it does mean is that you can book ahead. You've got the confidence of knowing that you're not going to turn up in Wroxham, join a queue and be the first person to be disappointed. You've got your tickets, and then you can go straight to the departure point, and they'll zap your barcode and you'll be on board. And of course, we've got skippers and crew there that are available at the boarding points to help anyone with any kind of disability, whether it's mobility issues or whether it's visual or whatever it is. You know, we've got, you know, an actual crew, so it's not like you're just left to your own devices. We can help, you know, we'll help people on board, help them to their seats.
Yeah, that's really
good. People any assistance that they need.
Yeah. So ticketing is all online now, right? All pre-bookable, and this is on your website?
Yes. Yeah. Broadstores.co.uk.
I'll post a link underneath. So yes. So what else do you do from London? So this is something that obviously we could tap into on our own, because not all of us are fortunate enough to have sighted drivers or sighted companions. So this is something that we could easily achieve on our own if we had, you know, somebody who's sighted. You also do day boats, is that right?
So we've then got huge numbers of options. So we've got the biggest fleet of day boats on the Broads. So we've got day boats, which are the basic ones without any facilities, but they have got a canopy for bad weather. And we've got the day cruisers, which have got a little a toilet, a little galley, so you can make a cup of tea or make lunch or whatever. And we do have one wheelchair accessible day boat as well.
Oh, nice.
Which is specially adapted with a ramp and so you can wheel on in your wheelchair with up to 4 other people on board. And we're one of the very few yards on the Broads that have got one of those. Does
that one get much uptake? Because you say you've got one.
Well, it's not massive. It's not hugely popular. We do market it and promote it. It's one of those things where we've tried to adapt and it's there for people that need it, but there are certainly probably more days than not where it doesn't get booked up for somebody with a wheelchair, and on the day we'll allow it to go out to somebody who's not, but we'll always we keep that one available so people have got that option.
That's good.
But yeah, you can hire a day boat for anything from 3 hours to all day. They take typically 8 people. We've got a couple of large electric ones which take up to 11. Obviously, the great thing with the electric ones is that they're silent and they're a bit more eco-friendly, and we're absolutely looking to increase the numbers. Ultimately, in the next few years, we want to electrify our whole fleet, but you've then got the whole infrastructure issues of how do you get enough charging infrastructure on site to deal with 50 electric boats all at once. But we'll get it. We'll move in that direction.
It's a conversation for yet another day, right?
Right. You can head out with your friends and family, obviously in the same social bubbles, and explore the Broads. The fact that the boats are smaller means that you've got more accessibility to. You can go under the bridge, which you can't do in our double-decker passenger boats, and head up to Bela and to Coltishall, which are quiet and beautiful areas. There's a lovely meadow at Coltishall and some lovely pubs to have lunch. And it's just a really beautiful, relaxing day out. Or you can head the other way again, Wroxham, Salhouse, Horning, a little bit further to probably Ranworth is as far as you'd probably want to go in a day. You've got the church tower at Ranworth that people can climb. You've got a lovely pub there again. But the Broads is just very much about relaxing. You chuck
it's just amazing, isn't it? So
it's not about how fast can I go and how fast can I get there. It's chill out. And just relax and watch the world go by really slowly. Turn your phone off.
Yeah. So sell us a day out in Wroxham, because obviously, I mean, the passenger boat trips, how long do those take? They're a couple of hours, are they?
1.5 to 2 hours. So we do a trip that goes as far as Salhouse, which is an hour and a half. 3/4 of an hour there, turn around and come back, and then we do a longer 2-hour trip which gets down Horning Reach, almost to the Swan at Horning, but not quite. Turns around and comes back. So that's the 2-hour trip. And of course, we also would ordinarily be doing private charter, so that you could hire a passenger boat for your 50th birthday party, your wedding anniversary, whatever it might be, or just any kind of party. And we're hoping that we'll be able to offer those sorts of things again soon. It was one of the big things that everybody misses, apart from perhaps 1 or 2 people who live on the river in Horning, is the boogie night. Every Wednesday evening, the boogie boat would go past with the disco, and people would be on the top deck dancing. And sadly, we can't do that this year, but they'll be back next year. But what we are doing is a sunset cruise now, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday evening at 6 o'clock. Which again goes down to Horning and comes back, and if the weather's fine, you can see the sunset, and that's just a lovely time to go out and relax. Bit of background music going on that trip. Of course, we have our Santa cruises at Christmas, very, very popular. We do about 30 of those every December, where the kids get a chance to meet Father Christmas and get a present. We land display on the roof.
I think sadly that's one of the last times I was on one of the boats.
So again, this year we've decided that we're going to run the Santa Cruz trips this year, but we're doing it on a different boat, which is a bigger one than we've traditionally done it on. Again, because we don't know what social distancing is gonna do to us by the end of the year.
I think that's traditionally when I find out that that then I'm the not the I'm the only person in the family who's not driving, and the only person in my family who likes mince pies. So
Oh, well, I don't like them either, so plenty in common with the rest of your family. Um, but and we're also planning to introduce things like casino nights, comedy club nights. Essentially those passenger boats are just like a floating function room. So anything that you could do in a hotel function room for up to 100, 120 people, we can and probably will do on the passenger boats, because it's just a great twist on going for a murder mystery evening. Let's say, well, why wouldn't you do that on the Broads? And you can, you then build a story around the river. So we're really looking forward to. I probably didn't mention that we only bought into this business in December, and it probably wasn't the best time to buy a new holiday business just before a pandemic. But we've got some real plans to take what's already there and really take it forward.
Yeah, and from my point of view, it's really good because I've known you for some years now, James, and I get to know because it is such an access point for disabled and visually impaired people. As I watch the business grow, I'll be putting sort of gentle pressure on sort of like, so how does that work for somebody who can't see? Yeah. So it's always good to be reminded of the bigger picture. So if somebody did come out and booked a couple of hours on the Broads, what else is there to do in Wroxham? There's places to have lunch. I know there's McDonald's. I can't believe I just said that.
There is a McDonald's in Wroxham.
But there's better places to eat, I presume.
I do occasionally, when I'm really up against it, have a sneaky one. But yeah, I mean, Wroxham is technically, Hovton, we should say, is technically.
Is it open for business? Are all the businesses up and going? Is there
very, very much open for business? Good. It's technically a village. Roy's is technically the world's largest village store, apparently, and of course most people know Wroxham / Hovton as being famous for Roy's. It takes up most of it. Big department stores, supermarket,
fish and chip places.
There's 3 fish and chip shops in the village. There's a pizza place. There's an Indian. There's a number of pubs. There's what's called the Wroxham, which most people know as the Hotel Wroxham, which was taken over a year or two ago, completely reinvented, beautiful hotel rooms, lovely food, lovely bar. Riverside Terrace facing south, they're directly opposite us. And yes, it's there's sandwich bars, there's boutiques, there's a Marine Chandler's. There's plenty. You can
easily spend a day.
You can spend a day in Wroxham and Hovton very, very easily.
Brilliant. So yeah, so you can book your tickets online and just have a really good day out. So, right, so I'm quite conscious that I'm taking up a lot of your time. Did you want to talk about the Waveney as well a bit, or do you need to dash? It's up to you.
No, I'm good actually.
So do you want to talk about the Waveney? Because
turn the phone off. Quit Team, so it won't ping up any other annoying notification noises. So down at Waveney, very, very different because we're not so accessible by public transport. We're one of the more traditional Broads locations where historically there was a ferry crossing and wherryman's. So a wherry is a Broads trading boat, or it was 120 years ago, and the wherryman would moor up at the public staith to load and to offload goods. And so 150 years ago, it started to develop with first a pub and an inn for wherrymen to stay in. And if you draw a straight line from Lowestoft to Norwich, it passes straight across through Borough St Peter. So that's why the ferry crossing point was there. So traditionally, people people from South Norfolk would cross on the ferry, walk across the marshes at Carlton Colville, Carlton Marshes, to walk to Lowestoft Herring Market. And so it was traditionally it was quite a busy thoroughfare and a highway before people invented motor cars. And so the ferry, of course, fell out of use by the 1950s, but we reinvented it about oh my goodness,
I remember it well.
Nearly 10 years ago. David Bellamy, who unfortunately passed this year, came and reopened it for us because he's long had an association with holiday parks and with Carlton Marshes, where he did his first PhD thesis, I think. So he came and reopened it for us. And then subsequently, Suffolk Wildlife Trust have got this huge grant from the Heritage Lottery Fund to do some massive habitat recreation. So over there was just arable land with patches of marsh in between. It's now been completely restored as a marsh, but so there's now grazing marsh. There's deep water reed beds where they've established a crane breeding ground. There's shallow water scrapes where migrating birds fly in and paddle. There's every pit. They often refer to it as the Broads in miniature, because every type of landscape that there is anywhere in the Broads exists somewhere within Carlton Marshes Nature Reserve, and you can easily now go and spend 3 days exploring that nature reserve. They have sort of safari trips, private safari trips where you can hire a Land Rover and get taken around for a little private tour around the kind of the back of the scenes. To explore, and they've got some very, very good guides over there who can explain far more than I would ever know about the different types of birds that migrate there, the different kind of birds that are native there. There's lots of birds of prey like barn owls and kestrels and marsh harriers. There's butterflies over there, lots of various kind of insect life. There's they've got a breeding ground for the fen raft spider, which is unique to the area, and these things are quite big. Arachnophobes may not wish to go to certain parts of it, but these things are fascinating. They don't bite or anything like that, but it's quite fascinating actually to see them at the right time of year. And so this over the course of the next 5 years, that reserve is going to really come into its own, and people will know it in the same way that they know the North Norfolk reserves, and it's going to become quite famous, and we are literally beside it, connected by the ferry.
Yeah, so what do you offer at the Waveney River Centre? Because you've talked about the Carlton Marshes, which is fantastic. I'm sure they're truly grateful for that plug. But what do you offer because it is inaccessible, to without a car. It really is. So, but once you've been deposited there, what can you do? So, if I arrived with Zorin, what could I do? Where could I stay? What's available?
So we've got a lovely pub, the Waveney Inn, which has also got some rooms. So only 7, but they're really lovely hotel rooms. And there's a nice big bar and restaurant there with indoor and outdoor seating. So we've got two outdoor seating areas, very important at the moment, of course. And the food there is lovely. We've also got, for a longer stay, we've got holiday lodges with hot tubs, we've got glamping, so we've got pods, yurts, traditional camping and touring and motorhome areas as well. So there's lots of places there, lots of opportunities to stay either overnight or to stay for a short break or a week. Some people even stay for a fortnight. But whereas 10 years ago, people would have come and stayed there and used it as a base for exploring the area by car. Although, as we've said, it's inaccessible really, other than by car or by boat, of course. But once you are there, there is plenty to do there. And people that come and have a short break with us particularly don't go out in their car once they've stayed with us. So they'll spend a day on the site. We've got an indoor heated pool, so they'll swim. They'll use.
Is that open now?
Yes, it is. Yeah,
it is.
They'll use the pub. If they're staying in a lodge, they'll sit in their hot tub with their glass of prosecco, or their plastic thing of prosecco, just literally absorbing the peace and quiet. Because even when we're busy, because we're right next to the marshes, the sound disappears, so it's never noisy when you're staying in those lodges. Even when you're outside and it's right now, it'll still be very peaceful, and you'll still hear the birds. Even when we've got people staying on the campsite just 150 meters away. So there's, and then, as I said, you'll take the ferry. You'll go and spend at least 1 day exploring Carlton Marshes Nature Reserve. It's a 40-minute walk from our ferry point to the railway station and Alton Broad. So if you enjoy walking, well, then actually you've got a railway station within 40 minutes walk. You can walk into Lowestoft as well. It's probably take you about an hour and a little bit, perhaps to walk from us into Lowestoft, where of course they've got the town centre, the beaches. So for people that are fans of walking, it's actually very accessible. It's just unfortunately not on a public transport link. But once you are there, it's a very, very, it's a beautiful place for anybody to come and stay for a short break.
And I presume you're perfect. I mean, obviously guide dogs are supposed to be welcome everywhere, but it's just, often it's nice to know that you really, really, really are, and it's not just something you have to suffer.
we're very pet friendly. The pub is completely pet friendly. The lodges, many of the lodges are pet friendly and pets welcome. So your dog will come with you. They'll have their own bowl and their own mat and their own set of instructions, which is written for the dog. So it's all about making sure that the dogs make sure that their owners behave properly. So make sure you keep your owner on a lead and all that kind of thing. So it's a little bit of humour, but it's not an afterthought. That we recognise that that not just guide dog users are out there, but lots of people are dog owners and want somewhere where their pet is actually welcome, and so we do welcome people. With
so you're dog friendly, not just guide dog friendly, but just generally dog friendly.
The hotel rooms are not pet friendly. However, guide dogs are allowed in our 2 ground floor hotel rooms.
Good. That's really
good. And on the
good.
rest of the site, so if you're glamping, if you're staying in a pod, if you're staying in the yurts, we do have pet friendly options for both of those. And of course,
so you could, if you had a pet dog and a guide dog, you could bring them both. So that's quite good.
And there's some good dog walking areas around there. We bought a field a couple of years ago, where so you can take your dog for a walk off the road, because of course the roads are quite narrow, being a rural area. So there's a good dog walking area, as well. And of course you can take dogs over on the nature reserve, but they do like them to be kept on a lead.
Under control. Right. Wow. Well, I think that was absolutely comprehensive, Jane. So I'm so grateful to you for that. So I will I'll post the links to both businesses either in the header to this video or underneath in the comment sections. I mean, if you liked what you heard today, just please give this post, the page, a like and a share, so that we can spread the word that it's okay. We businesses are geared up, and I'll try and get. It's not easy right now because everybody's chasing the season while it still progresses to make sure they get as much businesses. But I'll try and get as much information about days out and what we can do onto this page, because it's not okay for us just to stay in. I feel that unless we take a few steps in the right direction, we'll get left behind, and that's not a place I really want to leave us in post lockdown and as we go into the winter. So anyway, so on that note, thank you, James, so much for your contribution today, and it's been invaluable, and I hope you start seeing a few guide dogs on your boats, because they are really they're I think that what guide dogs do generally is just such an asset to society and generally, and the dogs are so amazing, and they just give you I don't know the comfort and the confidence to do things, and it's just good to know that there are businesses out there who really welcome dogs with open arms, and the new systems in place post lockdown and with COVID are actually something we can easily tap into. So on that note, thank you to you, James, and thank you to everybody on the page who's tuned in today, and hopefully I'll see you next week with something new and exciting. At the moment, I'm having to make up the plan as I go along, because in these fast moving times, my guests dropping in and out of what they want to do on pretty much a daily basis. But fingers crossed, next week on Wednesday, 10 a.m. more or less, I'll have somebody new to bring on and talk to you about what's going on in the world, and I'll catch up with you then. So thanks very much, and see you next week.
Thanks, Lana. Take care.
Bye.